So, for those who don't know, my name is Raquel Wilson. I am the proud Youth Voices Rising coordinator here. Youth Voices Rising coordinator. I'm so sorry. Youth Voices Rising program manager here at Foster Media Connections. I have been with the program for 3 years, and we have just been skyrocketing into higher places. I'm trying to create creative ways for foster youth to not only publicly talk about their experiences in the system, but also write about their experiences for the system, and hope that we can reshape some policies and change the minds of how people see foster youth and how they view and support us. And so I'm so grateful to be here with you all today. Welcome to Foster Care to Prison Pipeline webinar. You're definitely in tune for a great discussion. We have some heavy hitter panelists that are going to be in the house today. And we're just really happy to have you all join us. So please keep introducing yourself in the chat, letting us know what organization you're representing. If you're from a foster youth, we would love to know that. If you are, what state you're in, all of the above, and please use this opportunity to make some connections as well. So thank you. And so just a little bit about FMC. So Foster Media Connections uses the power of media and journalism to lead the conversation about children, youth, families in America. We have three programs under the FMC umbrella. The Imprint is obviously one of the biggest ones, where they have the site is dedicated to child welfare, juvenile justice, homelessness issues. Their audience is connected to those in government, and just everything child welfare. Their aim to change policies. They aim to reshape the minds of people utilizing journalism. We have some really great reporters who are also former foster youth as well. And so it's just a really, really great program. And also the outlet that we use to publish our YBR stories. And so with the Fostering Families Today is the magazine newsprint, which we also publish stories on as well. And it is dedicated to resource parents, kinship care, adoptive parents, birth parents, bio families, and just everything, including and involving, telling the stories of foster youth, sharing their experiences, and really getting the stories and creating a community for resource parents and adoptive parents and parents. And all of the above to share their stories as well, and their experiences, and hope to reshape and change the way that people feel about, resource parents and et cetera. And so thank you guys so much for being here. So about our program, the YVR program, which I'm always excited to talk about. So FMC's YVR program began in 2016 as a journalism training program. We have since took the program to new heights and new levels, incorporating different educational workshops where I'm training foster youth and teaching them how to turn their lived experiences into publishable pieces. We have created a writing and poetry contest, which our stories are getting ready to be published for National Foster Care Month next month. We created paid contributor roles. I have a partnership with UC Berkeley and UCLA, an externship program that welcomes foster youth that are students in college to come and work under the YVR program and learn administrative tasks, and also participate in a really, really amazing campaign, which this year we're planning a black and brown male foster youth summit. And so if you want to stay informed of all of the wonderful things that we are doing over here at the YVR program, please follow our newsletter. We're going to drop it in the chat. And in addition to our social media platforms, where we are constantly sharing opportunities, webinars like this, we're always seeking panelists. We just started our journalism contributor cohort, which we're gearing up to have them go through a journalism training and graduate at the end in December. And so just everything for foster youth, by foster youth. And as you guys know, I'm also a representative of the system and advocate of foster youth, because I also share these experiences as well. So thank you. And so at this time, you should see a poll that will pop up on your screen. And this is just so that I can know, like, how, what are you representing? If you're from a foster youth, you are a foster parent, kinship parent, social worker, attorney. And basically, how did you hear about this event? And this helps me find and discover better methods to basically get this information out so that we can have as many as people on this platform, not only to learn, but also be educated on the experiences that our panelists have had, as well as that I've had, and hopes that we can like reshape and again change the minds of the way people think and see foster youth. And so please feel free. We're going to allow some time for folks to fill this out. And just thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry. So at this time, you should see the results pop up on your screen. And this is just a way for us to be transparent. I'm trying to discover more ways to welcome more foster youth to this farm, especially in these conversations. I would love to have the foster youth who are experts now as resource parents being a part of these webinar conversations. We still have a list that you can find on our website, our webpage, of all of the next webinars that we have coming up. Some are going to be dedicated to, one is going to be dedicated to social workers and positive experiences with social workers. And we're going to want some experts. So I see that there's a good percentage of social workers in the house today. So please, when you're filling out your post evaluation, and leave your email so that I can reach out to you and invite you to come be a panelist and be a part of these, and so that you can be a part of these conversations. And so thank you to everybody that filled this out. Um, Greatly appreciated. Again, this helps me basically just do my job better and find better ways to get this information into homes and to people. And so I just wanted to give some house rules really quickly because we're getting ready to start the conversation. And I just think that is important just to add a little new flavor to the way that we do our webinars. And so the first house rule, we're asking that everyone just please be respectful and use active listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the inbox, in the chat, not the inbox, I'm sorry, in the chat. We will set aside a time after the discussion to answer some of the questions that are in the chat. And our panelists also will be answering questions in the chat as they see best see fit. Number two is knowing that this presentation is being recorded. And so we will share this with people who registered for this webinar. And some of the people couldn't be here today, but they still wanted to have the opportunity to watch and maybe reshare this information. And so we want to welcome them. And so we do want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded in hopes that we can still, further push the envelope to amplify the voices of foster youth. And so, again, we will save questions for the end. You may post them directly in the chat, and then we'll be reading out some of the questions as well as answering some of the questions in the chat as we move forward through the discussion as well. And so just again, thank you all for being here today. I'm super excited to talk about this. I want to introduce you to our panelists. And so give me just 1 second. I'm not sure why my thing is here. But so unfortunately, two of our panelists had to change their event. So we will see two of our panelists next for the next webinar. But not to be worried because we still have three heavy hitters. And so I want to welcome Kayana Bradley, first of all. Her pronouns are she and her. She is a heavy hitter from New Orleans, Louisiana. And so Kayana, I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and share your experiences. And so I just wanted to just say thank you so much. I had the opportunity to meet Kitty, which is what we call her. I had the opportunity to meet Kitty some while back with another opportunity that I'm working on with the Tech and Tay board, and she just has been an absolute heavy hitter to work with. And just a pure advocate, really authentic. And so thank you so much, Kitty, for being here today and joining us. And we're so grateful to have you and welcome you into this space. And this your first webinar with YER. And so next up is Atori Burrell. Her pronouns are she and her. She is representing Victorville, California. Atori is also one of our heavy hitters. You can find some of the articles that she's wrote for the YBR program on our webpage and under our YVR column under the imprint. She's participated in webinars before. She comes from a foster care juvenile justice background, and I'm going to give her the opportunity to also share briefly about her experience, more about her experience. But Atori has just always been just a doll to work with, and I'm just extremely happy to have you here today as a panelist representing something that, you know, often we don't get the space to really talk about in our experiences. And so thank you so much, Atori. And so certainly last but not least, we have Deshaun D, is what I call him, Rankins. And so his pronouns is he and him. He is from Los Angeles, California. Currently resided in Georgia, getting ready to move back to Los Angeles, California. But Deshaun is also someone that has wrote and been involved with the YVR program since I feel like I've been here. Deshaun, we're so happy to have you here to speak about your experiences. Deshaun has also participated in webinars. He has wrote articles for us as well. And you can read more about his experiences and learn more about his experiences as we move through the discussion. And so at this time, we're going to drop the PowerPoint. And we are going to start the discussion. And so I'm going to start off with Atori. And so Atori, can you briefly share, well, I already kind of introduced you, but can you briefly share, you know, your experience in foster care, you know, and briefly describe how you were transitioning into or pipeline to the juvenile detention center, prison, etc.
Okay. Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Atori, and I'm glad to be here for sure, representing, you know, former foster youth and just hoping to be a light to the current foster youth. I was entered into foster care at the age of 14, which is a little later than most people who enter into foster care. My mother was killed when I was 4 years old, and so my grandmother adopted my 6 siblings and I. And so we moved out to San Bernardino, California, and she pretty much tried to do her best to raise us together without us going into the foster care system. But after, you know, raising so many children, I believe by the time she got to me, it was destined, is how I like to think about it, for me to experience something different. And so she gave up her parental rights to me and only me. And that's when I entered into the foster care system. I was a normal adolescent child. I was considered hard-headed and had a problem with our authority. I didn't really like to express myself. And so that was one issue that I had growing up, is I did not talk about some of the things that I was dealing with. My father is who murdered my mom. And so I had dealt with just like depression and being alone and feeling like I was put in a predicament that I didn't ask for. And so without me being able to express that to anyone, I acted out in a lot of different ways. And long story short, I ended up in foster care at 14. I was always a bright kid, still am a bright young woman, and got really good grades in school, but my social life is where I had trouble. And so with that being said, it had me AWOLing from different placements and pretty much just not wanting to follow any rules, looking for alternatives to my current situation. And ultimately that did lead me to the children's juvenile hall system, where I didn't spend too much time because I quickly got my act together so that I can go out and back into normal society. But I am here today just advocating for the young people who are kind of lost, not quite knowing what to do or who to go to. It's best to try to just stay on the straight and narrow. Take care of your business, because that right there is what's going to help you be successful in the future. So that's a little bit about my story. I'm sure I'll be able to share a little more as we continue this discussion. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, Atori. Thank you so much. And you were so right. You definitely are bright. And I just adore you. So you know how I feel about you. So boom. So I want to pass that same question over to Deshaun. So Deshaun, can you share with us and the audience about your foster care experience and how you were pipelined essentially to, the prison system?
Absolutely. Peace, everyone. My name is Deshaun Rankins. I go by D Ranks. Deshaun Rankins is also my actual name, so that's fine with me. Um, I was pretty much born into it per se. I was born to a teen mother, and my father was incarcerated because he was overage. So um, I pretty much kind of born to it. I bounced around with a lot of different family members, even though it wasn't foster care to begin with. It kind of felt like I didn't have a home because I was kind of orphaned throughout every single family member's house that we typically had. I ended up going to foster care around the age of, I believe I was 13 years old, and I ended up aging out of foster care as well. Um, having not having a feeling like having a home, it it leaves the feeling of, you have to find a home somewhere. And for me, it was just my community, my environment, um, the streets really. And that led to a lot of decisions that led to being incarcerated. And I feel like even being incarcerated, it didn't have the same effect as it would a person who grew up in foster homes, things of that nature, because I already didn't feel like I had a home. I already felt like I was always living out of my duffel bag. And going to prison, it was just another episode of living out of your duffel bag, not really having a permanent place to stay. And I knew that prison wasn't the end result for me, but it did make it not as hard being there because I was already used to not mit, not being around for holidays. I was already used to, knowing that I have brothers and sisters and stuff and birthdays pass by, but we really don't communicate. So I was used to all of those things. And in a sense, it feels like I was kind of being primed for prison because of the circumstances. And when I was coming up in foster care, it really felt like we didn't have a lot of the resources that we have today. So for me, it really started to feel like it is literally what it is, a pipeline. It's a pipeline. It's a foster to prison pipeline because at the end of the day, it seems like the railroad is pretty set for you to end up in environments and situations. And I did not say that being in prison was a bad experience because ultimately everything works out for the greater good. Where I'm at today is like you would never know that, my upbringing is where it was. I have two beautiful daughters who I love dearly and I cherish them so much. I would never allow my child to go through anything that I went through. And that's my positive takeaway from this, from my experience growing up in foster care and just being bounced around through to every single family member that was willing to take me in. And now I tend to use music and health and wellness and just being a spiritual advisor and a counselor to others to help them get through anything that I can. I don't like to box myself in. I do have a passion for the foster system and the foster care, foster children. But at the same time, I'm pretty much open to anyone, and I feel like my upbringing with foster children and being in foster care, it left me vulnerable and open to experience a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. And that helped me where I'm at to this day. So, you know, I'm at the point where I'm at in my life where I don't even see, the things that I went through as bad or good. It literally just works out for the greater good. And I'm happy, where I'm at in my life mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Um, yeah, and I think that's pretty much it.
Yes, thank you so much, Dee, for sharing your experience. And just very, very just proud of you. Not only for just being vulnerable as a Black male, who like, that, often there's not a lot of spaces for males to, feel welcome and talk about their experiences. And so we appreciate your vulnerability to share your experience openly. And then also, just shout out to you for just being an awesome dad, and always seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's definitely commendable and something that a lot of foster youth and just folks in general can be able to take away, and be able to look at life, from a different perspective. And so thank you. And so TD, thank you so much for being here with us. So I want to pass that same question over to you. Can you briefly share your foster care experience with our audience, and talk about what led you to, feeling like you were a pipeline through, to the prison system, the juvenile justice system, et cetera.
Thank you. And thank you for just allowing me to be here today and just being able to create this space so I can be able to share and always help out in any way that I possibly can. Just create awareness about these issues and systemic issues as well. But hi, everyone. My name is Kiana Bradley. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on if you're on specific time systems and Central Time, Eastern Time, all that good stuff. But my name is Kiana Bradley, also known in Louisiana and a little bit nationally as, and I go by Kitty, my nickname. So I came into care and the foster care system based off of my mom having like several strokes and being ill, and was placed into a nursing home. Me and my sisters, like we were just staying at home, taking care of ourselves really. But it was reported to DCFS that, of course, children can't stay home, children can't take care of their own selves and stuff like that. At the time, 12 years old, coming into the system, we're about to turn, about to have a birthday, at 13. Just as we was coming in, me and my sister, we decided to like run away right then and there because, we're just like, we don't know what this is. We don't know what the system is. We don't know how this is about to function. We don't know if you're going to keep me and my sisters together. So we was like, we're just going to run away. But then that's when our workers had basically, the social worker at the time had told us like, we already had picked your little sister up and like picked her up from school. So me, my older sister, she still chose to run away. But I was like, well, you already have my little sister and I want to know where she is, whose custody she's in, things like that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go right into DCFS custody with you all, and I'm going to retrieve my little sister from me. So I was able to go with them to the DCFS office, be able to see my little sister, and make sure she was all right, she was okay, and that she was being treated well too. And then from there, I guess they showed us like the house that we was going to be staying in with the foster parent and things like that. But my little sister and myself, we still didn't feel comfortable in the situation. I mean, no child would feel comfortable in this transition and being taken away from their home or what they felt like was home, or their home with parents or siblings or other people like that in their family, or whoever they create their family with or their chosen family with. Um, and I guess just moreover, just through time, we just kept feeling like, okay, we want to be around our older sister. We want to still have our family bond. We want to still be able to go see our mom in a nursing home at the time. And we felt like those things wasn't happening. So we did. We chose to, me and my little sister, we was at the foster home, but we chose to run away. And then again, choosing to run away, you go into the system. And from there, we went into the juvenile system on being a runaway and, basically being flagged as like a behavioral issue, a child with a behavioral issue as a juvenile delinquent, so that's how I guess our prison, the pipeline, our juvenile background becomes an issue from children being runaways because they mark us like as high risk at that point. And then from there, like having troubles like school, because we was in school at that time, but DCFS had to notify the school. So even if we still from running away, we still wanted to go to school at that, and during that time, the school would say, okay, you're a runaway. So the first person we're going to talk to and the first person we're going to reach out to is is the FBI or NOPD for us down here in Louisiana. We're going to get the police department involved. We're going to call like the social worker. So we would be taken out of school for that, even though we're there to get an education and there to, make sure we're learning all the things that we're supposed to learn. But at the time, so we couldn't even go to school anymore because we just knew we're marked as high risk. We were marked and put on runaway. And even if we did still choose to go to school, during runaway, that we were just picked up by the NOPD, by the police department. So we still couldn't like keep our family connection, our family bond. And then moreover, over time, we just like chose to, because we knew we still wanted to go to school, we knew that we wanted to graduate, we knew we wanted to be able to go to college, things like that. We just chose to like turn ourselves over and turn ourselves in. And that way DCFS was brought into the scenario and the police department was brought into the scenario. And we was displaced back into our foster home. But then from there, we was marked as high risk and still left into the system. So, and then more over time, we just wanted to make sure we was always advocating. Me and my little sister, we always would just advocate for those youth that would be involved in the foster care system or be involved in the juvenile, the delinquency system and things like that too. So we just would always want to make sure that was talked about, whether a child was going to school or a child wasn't going to school or he was being marked as a runaway, that these was these issues that was raised and brought up. I don't know if right there and let somebody else be able to talk. Oh, Raquel, I think they can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Raquel. Bear with us, everyone. I'm sure they'll get this fixed soon. They're great at this.
I can hear Tori, but you guys can't hear me.
There you go, Raquel. We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. I'm like, I don't know what's happening if I say it, I'm on mute. Sorry, you guys. Technology is crazy today, or just sometimes you guys know. So just thank you so much. Okay, so can you guys hear me? Everybody can hear me? We're good. Okay, perfect. So thank you guys for just bearing with us for that minor slightly hiccup, but the discussion was getting really good. So Tori, since you're on my screen and appreciate you, I want to pass that question to you. So the next question to you. So what are some obvious challenges that you feel like foster youth that have been that have juvenile experience? What are some of the obvious challenges that you feel like they face?
What are some of their obvious challenges that
foster youth with juvenile experience face?
The worst of both worlds. They have the foster youth experience, so like Deshaun Rankins was saying the feeling and those like that emotional disconnect from things, a lack of family, a lack of support most of the time, a lack of stability, and resources as well. There are things in place to help foster youth, but it is hard to access when your mind isn't there, and so when you're inside of a situation to where you're being removed from your home or feeling like you're missing birthdays or missing holidays, you're missing piece of yourself. You have a lack of love and a lack of connection. And so foster care just creates that regardless. Whoever it is, it creates that void within oneself. And then if you tack on the juvenile system on top of that, now that's punishment. Now I'm being punished for not having, or now I'm being ridiculed or put in a label to where I can't even go out and obtain higher education sometimes, financial aid sometimes, a job, references, it just, you're put inside of a very, very limited pool for you to climb out of. And it's really hard to excel after you've been in foster care, and then let alone in the juvenile justice system, because everyone has now pretty much turned their back and very few people are reaching out for help. So the obstacles are plenty, very much so.
Yes, thank you. And when we get into, it's another question that I have about rehabilitation. I'm definitely going to come to you to share more about some solutions and some methods that possibly could work. So thank you. So I want to pass that same question over to you. So, drawing a connection between your experience and foster care and juvenile justice experience, and the many experiences that foster youth like myself and you guys have had. What are some obvious challenges that you feel like foster youth with juvenile experience face?
I feel like well, for me personally, just speaking from my lived experience, we get treated different. Like foster children kind of get treated different. And it's not necessarily by the adults, but it's a feeling of shame that kind of comes with the circumstance and situation that even your peers pick up on. And it kind of shifts the energy and the people that are around you per se. And it kind of makes you more susceptible to having calluses on your heart at an early age. And I know, Tori just kind of spoke to the same thing, but in a nutshell, that's really what it boils down to. Because these things are like stress factors that our peers typically don't go through and don't experience, for the most part. And these stress factors at a young age, they tend to take a toll on us at a young age. So we have to find other outlets. So for me, I just feel like, one of the major components is that feeling that comes with, being in foster care, just that shame, that feeling of unwantedness, so on and so forth. It just kind of makes it made me feel like I was at a disadvantage already. If people didn't kind of care, and it kind of shifted my attitude, because everything is about perception. And I feel like the things that I went through at an early age kind of shifted my attitude and caused me to kind of go to develop this I don't care attitude. I don't care what happens. I don't care. And it's not so that, you just a bad kid. It's like, I already feel like I'm unwanted. So it's not like, because there are a lot of resources out there for foster youth, and there are a lot of different avenues, to make sure that you don't go through this type of thing. But, once you have to develop calluses on your heart and your mind, and you have that I don't care attitude because you already feel unwanted by the people who, we kind of feel like are always supposed to be there and love us and take care of us. It just kind of makes the walk and the journey a lot more harder, a lot more things to experience. Um, and that's pretty much it, because at the end of the day, I feel like there are a lot of resources out there, and the main thing is getting to those counselors and things like that, because we're offered counseling and therapy, before any of those life decisions kick in, where you end up in a prison pipeline, and then you if you refuse it, you go up in there and you ended up talking to one anyway. So I feel like you just kind of take advantage of the things that's right there, because it's easy to develop that I don't care attitude because nobody cares about me. And those are things that we just do to self-destruct.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm over here snapping. I'm like, yes, because I literally can like, just, and it's just really crazy because I always talking about how foster youth who have shared similar experiences, we weren't in the same homes, but somehow, some way we still walk away with some of the same traumatic feelings. The callous on your heart quote was just amazing because like, that's really how we feel, the bonds that are broken, in terms of being able to connect, be able to cultivate positive relationships, be able to connect with peers, like all of that stuff comes into play. And then like something that Tori says, it's almost, and you said that it's almost like, it's this, it's that's why I call it a pipeline, because you're cycled through a systems, and then you're cycled through another system, and then you get homeless, and then they want you to be on government assistance, and then it's just another way for you to need or be put in a box, where people kind of control you. And, as we all know, as foster youth, once you get into your adulthood and heal and like, kind of get through your traumatic experiences, you want control over that. You won't control over your life because you didn't have control over it at some point. And so just thank both of you guys for sharing. And thank you so much, Kitty. I'm coming to you now. And so just based off of what we've been discussing, and just the experiences of just like, I've talked with like my experience, being sent to juvenile hall the first time was because there wasn't rooms in there, they wasn't taking in older foster youth, and there wasn't rooms in group homes. And so it's like, well, hey, let's throw you in this little facility and you stay there. And even though you're in a detention center and you have different perks, you get more free time, outside time and stuff, because they know that you didn't do anything wrong, you're just a foster youth. But still, like, it like one thing could put you on probation, and all of that stuff follows you well into your adulthood. And so Kitty, what are some methods you would change so that the foster care to prison pipeline is broken?
Yeah, I guess I would definitely say I agree with all of you guys, what y'all been saying so far. But I guess what I would change is when a youth, because if we're trying to create a space where it's normalcy and there's a safe space for children to normalize, like literally child behavior, children just being children at the end of the day. Like if like that's the I guess that's the same thing as if I did have a sister or if I did have a brother. If I'm, sometimes siblings feud a little bit, they fight a little bit, they argue a little bit. If any child, even if there wasn't siblings in the house, technically I always called any sibling that was in the house a foster sibling. I just call them a sibling. But if I did like have a fight or did a little feud or something like that, why are we calling the police? Like we really need to change our policies and procedures about if a child had a fight in a home, like we're calling the police if it's late at night instead of the social worker, or instead of us like as foster parents or resource parents or caregivers just in general, we should try to work out those issues. Because if this was your own child, or if you felt like adopt this child, you was gonna have to work it out anyway, not calling the police to be able to I guess to help supervise or help fix this issue. We need to be able to, I guess, better support foster parents or better support caregivers if it's congregate care, group home type of placement, mental health type of placement, instead of always getting police department involved in certain situations, because that easily puts their name in the system too as well. So we need to fix the policy on how we're talking about that. And the same thing for truancy. Well, we know also for schools, school policy, if we're sending a child home for detention or suspensions and things like that for the school pipeline, then we need to also make sure with schools that if we do suspend a child or we do put a child for detention, that yeah, we do need to understand, like, if they are home, they may go to the store, they may go try to hang out in the park, they may try to do these things where you're not sending them home with any homework in the first place. And also sometimes you're sending them home and the parent has to stay home, which they can't work anymore at that point because they need a babysitter or they can't afford a babysitter, too. So instead of having like a out of school detention or out of school suspension, so sorry about my background a little bit, you guys, but they need to make sure they have this in school, like maybe an in school detention, or maybe like an in school disciplinarian person that they could be able to better work and better talk to these children and better support these youth instead of always getting the police department involved, whether it's school, whether it's in a home, a foster home, or anything like that. I think those type of policy situations within the DCFS system or any community partner system as well too. We need to have more of a conversation, be more aware of them.
Oh yes, thank you, Kitty. I appreciate you. I think you kind of froze, but I feel like we got the gist of what you were
Oh, I'm
saying.
sorry.
And I feel like we got the gist of what you were saying. And I love that you spoke about disciplinary policies, because that's going to segue into my next question. I wish I would have called on you last for this one, but we're going to get more into disciplinary policies. So I'm so happy that you brought that up, because definitely policy change is something that needs to happen. And I want to talk more about that. But before that, so Tori, what are some methods that you would change to break the foster care to prison pipeline?
So I liked what Kiana said about how we respond to behavioral issues, because I think that that's really key. I think the fact that adolescents have behavior issues is a normal thing. I think people should really get that through, get that message out there, because then it would be normalized and there'd be a better practices involved in order to take care of those problems or to handle that time period, because most of the time it's just a time period. Once you get to a certain point, you kind of break out of those foolish ways. But as soon as, someone see you act out, a lot of times they call the police. And what she mentioned had really resonated on my heart, because I remember the first time I was ever put in handcuffs. I was maybe 11 years old, and I had some type of issue going on. I don't quite remember what happened, but I know that it wasn't serious enough for the police to be called, and I was so scared. And I remember they came and they called me out into the driveway, and they had a conversation, and they said, why are you being disobedient? Why are you talking back? And I just didn't respond. Like I mentioned earlier, I was pretty much a mute growing up. I never could express myself based on some of the things that I have went through. And I just felt like there was not a safe space for me to honestly share what was going on in my heart. And so when I got in trouble, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to own up to my mistakes or take accountability. I would have rather just sat there. That was my way of, figuring it out, just like mentally, and so the police pretty much said, okay, you don't want to talk, put your hands behind your back. And I looked around, thinking that an adult would intervene, and no, they handcuffed me and they shoved me onto the sidewalk and told me to sit there. And they said, now you see all of your friends out here looking around, this is what they see. They see you misbehaving, and and they gave me this whole spiel, which I'm sure they were trying to enlighten me, but it really traumatized me, very much so. And so, so what Kiana had mentioned about using the police as a tactic to handle behavioral issues with young people. That's one policy or one like characteristics of culture that we need to learn how to change and try to spread that word. The other thing that I would change as far as policy is enforcing therapy, because therapy is necessary. Like Mr. Rankin said, regardless of when you get it, if you end up in prison or juvenile hall, you're going to talk to somebody. Until I was able to actually open up my mouth and verbally talk through some of the things that I've been through, I would have healed from my situation. Now I consider myself healed and happy and in a much better space. So that's a good thing. There's so many other practices that are there within the foster care system that I feel like at this point now in my life, I've kind of grown out of that situation, so I can't quite call on each and every one. But I think that current foster youth should be given this platform, Raquel, so that they can talk about what is happening right now I know they are offered the positions, but we need to really try to get them on here because they are dealing with a foster system that I did not deal with. You know, they're living in some other times right now. And so we got to figure out exactly like what they are going through right now. And what policies right now are in place that maybe were in place back when I was and you was in foster care that we need to extinguish. Because I believe that clearly is still some issues happening because kids are still in the prison system.
Yes, yes. I'm loving the conversations about policy and policing too, because it's literally segueing into my next question that I'm going to pass the D. And so, Deshaun, we talked about, law enforcement and their involvement, in every walk of life. I even last year wrote an op-ed for our program dedicated to talking about my experiences of just being scared of the police because they're constantly there. Like, they're there when you're removed from your home. They're there when you AWOL. And while I do understand that, some parents have been like kind of forced, like, I don't feel like all of the foster parents that called the police on me wanted to call the police on me, but like someone said that they, also risk losing their licenses and all of that stuff. So I want to dive more into that, and talk about some of the issues that play a part in, foster youth being pipelined through the system and some of these disciplinary actions. And so, what about, probation officers being in school and the school of the prison pipeline, the disproportionality of Black foster youth and how they are often, charged for, minor crimes and giving, maximum sentences and, maximum probation, terms, hoping in hopes that they, do something again so that they can, be continued shuffled through the system. And so, let's speak about some of those disciplinary policies and practices, and share a little bit more about some of your experience, Deshaun, and, your thoughts on, law enforcement, being in the school and the policies that, often keep foster youth arrested and in handcuffs and, in the presence of police.
Yeah, so like my thing of it when it comes to authority, I'm honestly I always had this attitude of like this rebel attitude when it came to authority because of my introduction to authority, like them being called on for situations that you wouldn't call the police for, in normal situations for people who aren't in foster care, and them coming in and like a flex power, so on and so forth, for the good cop bad cop, and all of these things are traumatizing. And at the end of the day, like foster children are vulnerable out here, And it's like who is there to protect, and now don't get me wrong, there are situations where, you have to, law enforcement has to step in. It really just be a thing of troubled youth, troubled foster youth, those experiences. But at the same time, now we speak into judgment of character, because you have a, a foster parent or a resource parent who is, who knows how to navigate certain situations better than another resource parent who would, call the police in a certain situation. And I don't know what the protocol is or what type of um, trainings that they do for, foster parents or even, police when being caught in situations that aren't as hostile. But I just feel like the ultimate answer is leading with love and also utilizing therapy and counseling, because like it should honestly be mandatory for foster youth. Um, because for me, I felt like it wasn't mandatory. I just said no, and it was like, oh, okay, and just walked away. So I feel like there should be a level of making sure that that we reach the child that's going through what they're going through. Because I found out that one thing that I've learned is that I suppress a lot of the things that I went through. I suppress them. People call things to my memory that I don't even like. They really have to jog my memory because the experiences were so traumatic. Just being around police and developing these attitudes for law enforcement and government officials because of how they're being introduced to us. And I don't know who said it. I think it was Tori when she said the police being called in situations that you wouldn't call on your own children. Like that was like so deep and so profound. And get to the root cause of that. Like, I feel like if there is a record, like let's look at that too. Let's look at both things. Let's look at the record for how many times a resource parent has called the police on a child, and now let's question that. Now let's question their motives. At the same time, look at the child as well. Look at how many times the police have been called on this child, and now we have to, tackle the problem from different views. So I feel like one, let's monitor both ways. Let's look at, you know, the behavior of the child, and let's look at the patterns of the resource parent, because somebody's calling them, and even with the with the social workers, let's look at their patterns too. How many of your caseloads did you just ultimately put in juvenile hall? Because I totally forgot that I went through the same exact thing as you, Raquel. There wasn't no placements. There wasn't no placements in my county, and they put me in juvenile hall for 3 months. I was in there for 3 months, and I didn't even do nothing. They was being nice, like you said. I was a porter. I think that's what they called it at the time. You'd be the one out there cleaning up and passing out the food and da da da. But it was just straight up because my social worker couldn't place me, and I don't know what their computers look like. I don't know if he's telling the truth or just don't want to do his job. I don't know how many of his caseloads that this didn't happen to. So, let's look at patterns. Let's do some inventory. What is it called? Let's audit. Let's audit you. Let's audit your record. Let everybody get audited, because it's not always the child or what they're going through. Sometimes it be the people around them. So I feel like, there should definitely be a level of kind of monitoring how many times they're being called, or monitoring how many times these people caseloads go to jail, monitoring things like that.
Yes, Deshaun. Yes, yes. You got the chat jumping right now because you were saying some really key points. And I love that you, said that, we do definitely need to monitor. Like, I get so sick and tired of hearing, like, because I feel like that people come into this work with the intentions to do good. Like, you don't go to school for all of those years to be a social worker, to wake up and be like, I'm going to intentionally throw kids in the system, like, and intentionally rip kids from their family. But I feel like along the way, people learn behaviors and patterns from their colleagues. They do shortcuts. And ultimately that always just impacts the foster youth. I mean, like, I feel like anything could have happened in versus, me being shipped to a juvenile hall. Like, I had aunties and cousins that wanted to take me in, but because I honestly feel like that the system gets more money for you living in a stranger's home than you living in a home with, somebody that's a foster parent or kinship care, et cetera. That, that's the reason why they don't really value the purpose of, kinship care and reunification and all of that stuff. And so I really appreciate it because you definitely said you dropped some gems. And we're going to talk more about how social workers and resource parents and what they could do to be better supportive, and how they can also hold their colleagues and peers accountable. Like, if you see your colleague that's a social worker not doing what they're supposed to be doing, what do you do? Like, I always feel like that, like, even with my resource parents, like, I remember days where, like, my resource parents used to, like, know the social worker was coming, so they had clean up, they had, what I'm saying, make sure that the man that ain't supposed to be there is gone, and just like, it's just really crazy. And so thank you so much, Deshaun, for sharing your experience. And so unfortunately, Kitty is at work, at court right now with one of her babies. And so she had to hop off, but she, if she can rejoin us, she will. But we want to just shout out Kitty and just thank her for her contribution today to the discussion. But we definitely can still continue. And so there will be a recording for folks who are happening to jump off, and there will be a recording provided to you in the follow-up email. And so you can continue to continue to hear the conversation well on after the discussion is over. And so thank you. And so Tori, same to you. Well, I mean, you already kind of talked briefly about the policing and policy and disciplinary actions that, come into place. And so, what are some pathways for foster youth that can change with better? What are some pathways? How can mentors help? How can social workers help the foster youth with juvenile justice experience? How can the resource parent? How can the bio birth parent help? I think that some of the most important people that I was able to connect with, that like literally I tested, like, but they stayed with me and is still with me till this day. Like the Sid Stewarts from Better Youth, somebody that never left me, been knowing me since I was 16. So, so community leaders are just as important. Program leaders like myself are just as important. And so what can these different people do, to help the foster youth that has the juvenile justice experience, to better support them, better offer them resources, et cetera, just everything above and beyond so that they can have a better chance at life?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is to stick around. Is to stick around and to stay around, if, like you said, you come into this line of work or you go out and become a social worker or a foster parent with the intentions of doing good, you have to remain pure in that, because there's going to be situations that happen that kind of, bother you or whatever the case may be, but you got to just push through. You got to believe that there's the good in, these youth and these kids, and push forward to be able to support them and to assist them. Because like that's what got me through. Mentorship. I played basketball for my high school, and I'll never, ever talk about my foster care experience and not mention Heather Dennington, because this woman was a white woman who came to me and took me in as though I was her child, and treated me just as such, no matter how many obstacles I came across, no matter me getting pregnant at 17 years old. She told me, Tori, I don't know what's wrong with you, but we're going to figure this out. You're still going to go to college. You're still going to go to school, and we still going to figure things out. She didn't allow certain things to run her off like, ooh, this is too much. I can't do it. When you invest yourself, you have to stay invested. And so I think that's a big thing that people can, that they can continue to do, to be able to help stop the pipeline. Bio parents, I don't know, because there's so many things that children it's so many reasons why children are led into foster care. So I don't have a response for that right now, but if foster care is the system that a child ends up, we need to do everything we can to ensure they do not end up inside that dual juvenile hall system or that prison system. You know, one is enough. I mean, you know, we need to make sure that whoever we come in contact with that is in the foster care system, that we take care of them to make sure that they become exceptional citizens moving forward. Do not just pass the buck, like they're too much and I'm gonna just let you do what you gotta do and we'll see, and we'll see you on the other side, you know. Criminalizing like behavior and mental health is a problem. I believe that was something that they did with prostitution, is they stopped criminalizing prostitution because they understood that that was a mental health disorder that people were going through, you know, like drugs, criminalizing drugs, that people are using drugs to cope, but you're putting me in jail, you know? And so don't criminalize a child for misbehaving when that's in the nature of a child to misbehave. Put practices into place to help heal that child so that we keep them from that juvenile justice system. And the fear of the police, you know, the fact that we all scared of the police is a problem. You know, we have to retrain our minds and retrain those systems to make them a part of the community instead of policing the community. And then maybe we'd be better off.
Yes, yes, Satori. Thank you so much. I absolutely agree with you 100%. I'm so happy that you chose to go like down the list, you know, of like, you know, how everybody could, you know, help and be better. And I love, you know, just what you said about resource parents and the birth parents, and how they could actually work together too. I think that that is the social worker, bio parent, birth parent, resource parents need to work together, you know, to establish, you know, some community, you know, create a mentorship pathway, you know, like it was hard for me to believe that people really wanted to see the good in me because all the people that wanted to see the bad in me, you know, they outweigh the number of people that actually want to see the good in me. And so when you get like that one or them two people, you know, that really believe in you, and like no matter if you like decide to run your head through the wall, you know, or like get in trouble one time or whatever the case may be, you know that they're going to be right there. Like, you know, we're going to be having a conversation. Like we have a lot of great topics coming up for the rest of the year. And so just thank you so much, Atori. And so Deshaun, I want to ask that same question.
I got one more because I think
okay,
this one goes back to birth parents, bio parents, or whoever family kinship, is that we have to put recertification and reunification on a pedestal when it comes to putting children back in their homes. Stop trying to raise children in foster care. Foster care is not a home. Foster care is a system. And so we have to put more emphasis into helping parents obtain whatever they need to obtain so that they can get their children back. Because regardless of the neglect or regardless of whatever the situation may be, you have that love for your children regardless. Most parents, you know, now if it's absolutely dire need, okay, that's a different scenario, but most parents have that, just that bond with children. And so we have to make sure that we are not providing a million steps for somebody to be reunified with their children. If I mess up, there's nothing that I have to do with my daughter. I just got to go and apologize, and now we done. But if something happens and your child ends up in foster care, you have to go through so many classes, so many therapy sessions, so many court dates. You have to show that you make 3 times the median income and everything else in between. I don't understand why that's the case. That those barriers are not put in place with the normal parent. I don't think that it should be so hard for a biological parent to get their children back. If they can support that child and they can support themselves, and especially for neglect, because neglect has such a wide it's a wide scope of things, like you say that I'm neglectful to my child because of a very small situation, but you have to go through so many loops just to get your child back. And I think that that's not okay. We have to put more emphasis on getting that child back inside their home with their families, with their loved ones, and stop trying to raise children within the foster care system.
Yes, Satori. I just love when you speak. It gives me Michelle Obama, Condoleezza Wright, Maxine Waters. It just, is very uplifting. And I just really appreciate you for, actually really going down the list and really, offering some key elements, to, ways that everybody could just show up and show out. I feel like even through like the hardships, and I always shout out like Jean Torres, my social worker, she never let me go. Miss Stewart, I took her through like the back and forth with, man, I didn't took her through the gates, I feel like, but she never let me go, and I just feel like that, with in terms of like mentorship is so important, because, it creates a pathway, and it's not going to be everyday thing. Like it took me 4 years to come out and share some of the experiences that I had. I literally was walking around living and calling people my aunties and uncles because I was embarrassed to be the foster youth, and be bounced around from different homes, living out of a trash bag, having to worry about my underwear and clothes and special belongings being thrown out or thrown away, lost it during placement transition, and just all of those crazy things. And so thank you so much, Tori, for sharing. So Deshaun, I want to ask you the same question. What pathways for foster youth can change if they are better supported by mentors, social workers, resource parents, bio parents, the community leaders? How can these folks, really help, minimize, the trauma and, the overlap, the pipeline of systems that foster youth have to face, and maximize the support, the resources, the opportunities that can help foster youth flourish?
Okay, so I was touched by what Corey said in terms of getting people back with their families, and getting the children back with their families, because it's still a near and dear situation. My sister, she has a situation where, like, there was a situation with her baby daddy and one of her children, and she had to go through so much to get her child back, and the effect that it had on her mentally, like she ended up having a few nervous breakdowns and lashing out, and it just caused the process of getting her children back to extend even further. And it's like, how much, can a deck be stacked up against a person? I feel like there should be a lot of that little system that's used to that people use to evaluate, a person's ability to care for the children that they bring into this world. It needs to be readdressed, reassessed, revised, modified. And I also feel like my situation coming through foster care is I have I have a cousin who isn't that much older than me. She got me by 5 years, and she wanted me to, come with her. Like she like, I'll take him. Like that's my cousin. Like she had all her stuff together at a young age, and she was just grown. But there's already a rule in place that they have to be a certain amount of years difference. Like they said that my cousin was too young to be my guardian. Like we were only 5 years. I think the number was 10 or 7 or something like that, somewhere between 7 and 10, that a person can become your parent or guardian, your legal parent or guardian. And I feel like, for certain situations and people, especially when, there aren't that many people available that are willing to, do what they can to help provide the child a better life. Let's reevaluate that as well. Like let's reevaluate that. Let's not just look at this paper that whoever agreed upon that this is the guideline that we're going to use Like, let's actually look at this person's track record. Let's look at their character. And do they have the ability? And do they really, care and love for this child, even if it's just a 5-year gap? Like, that shouldn't be the thing that automatically disqualifies somebody. And then what? They age out in foster care, and the system continues to collect money. And then when they don't have a home for you, they put you into juvenile hall, and they continue to collect money. Like, where is this money going? Or like, how about we build more group homes that are designed specifically for people, like children who can't get placement, instead of the last resource being juvenile hall? How about the last resource be wherever these funds are going, allocate those funds into some type of real estate or some type of group home or placements for children who are there strictly on the fact that they didn't break no law. They just don't have placement for them. Like, why is juvenile hall an option? And I know that they have spots like that already, but we need more of them. Like, we need more of them because we know that they allocate and they're making a lot of money off of it anyway. Like, they allocate funds for a lot of different things that don't have nothing to do with foster children, that can be allocated to foster children to help clean up this over here. So those would be my 3 things.
Yes, yes, D, yes, yes. I really, really appreciate that. What you said too, and I love you mentioning reunification, because I think that the stories that we share of how like we couldn't go to like our family members, and the similarities to that, and like the stress of reunification, the hard work and the different cycles that you have to go through to even get your kid back, and it's like, if I'm like not working or I'm already struggling, like, how do you think that I'm supposed to, catch a bus, for 2 hours to come to a class for 6 hours, go back home? Like, it's just like mentally designed, I feel like, for you to fail or give up and just be like, you know what, I don't care anymore. The system didn't stole my kids, and it's just the end of all. And so just thank you. And so I want to segue, because we did bring up reunification, and I think that there's a lot of victimization that comes with the lack of reunification, and the need for more rehabilitation. And so how can we shift from, how can the system, the folks that work in the system, that serve us in the system, serve foster youth, how can we shift towards prioritizing reunification versus keeping young people in the system? Do you feel like that rehabilitation methods serve foster youth? And if not, what would you change about rehabilitation? What would you change about reunification? And Tori, I'll pass that to you.
What would I change about rehabilitation is, well, first, I would start with reunification, because I think that should be priority, in getting kids back to their home, back to their safe zone, back to their comfortable place. I was reading in the chat, and I think someone, Katie Mercado, she said, we need to change the length of time for terminating parental rights. It takes time to get these things done. And I think that that's a good point to make, because I believe my grandmother's parental rights were terminated within 12 months, within 1 year. And I mean, it's not like she wasn't trying. It was just, she wasn't trying. She just wasn't accomplishing what they needed her to accomplish within the certain time frame. And I think with younger kids, it's even like pushed to hurry up and terminate parental rights, because they can get adopted quicker. Younger kids can be picked up by a new family. And so if the courts aren't seeing progress the way that they like, let's hurry up and terminate parental rights so we can get this kid adopted out and so forth. So I would change that about the reunification process, is the time period, and making sure that this is not a plan put in place by someone who doesn't even know this family. You know, it should be individualized, specialized plans to reunify, not an overall reunification plan for every family, because certain obstacles are much larger barriers for some people. And so I think that there needs to be someone who sits down with that parent that says, what are you going through? What are you struggling with? And how do we help you get over this hurdle? Not you have to take care of this problem. You got to get over this hurdle, and we'll see you back here in 3 months. If they were already experiencing that barrier prior to, what makes you think that barrier is still not in place now? There should be some type of resources put in place so that parents can actually obtain those goals that are being put forth, and make sure that the goals aren't all, you know, things for no reason, you know, things that don't even apply to the situation. You know, if they have to take a parenting class, so be it. But if you have them, you know, just doing things that don't even apply to the situation, I feel like that is just, you know, that's just extra hurdles to go through. And I don't think we need to have those things in place. Keeping siblings together, I know, is a big thing. I remember when I went into foster care, and I have a younger sister. I have 4 older siblings, and then I have 5 older siblings, myself, and then my younger sister. And I remember when I went into foster care, the only thing I cared about was her. I cried in that room and I said, I just want to make sure that my younger sister is okay. I just want to make sure that she's okay. And although she didn't go into foster care, that feeling that I had, I'm sure every older sibling has when they have siblings who go into foster care. So if we can learn to keep kids together, that'll hopefully limit the amount of trauma that they're experiencing within this system. And then on top of that, trying to get them back home together as well is an added benefit. The rehabilitation process, if they can get reunified with their family, and now they're in foster care, and they're going through this system, therapy, good therapists that care, therapists that are not just there for a check, therapists that are not on the county's payroll, you know, somebody who is an unbiased person who wants to go out and help these people. I think is like a total benefit that we need to look into as providers for these children. And then also resources to help kids like find their passion, find their purpose. Okay, now that you're in this situation, how do I help you into school? How do I help you follow those dreams that you have? Let's try to not, what did you just call it? Re-traumatize people. They're already here. Let's try to figure out how we can have them on a pathway to success, you know, kind of get their minds off of their situations, making sure that these foster homes are up to par and, you know, within standard. I had a foster parent, and my foster story is, you know, all over the place, but I remember I had a foster parent that literally only had hot dogs and macaroni and cheese. That's all she served. If you didn't eat that, she didn't know, because that's what she cooked, that's what she had, and she would chop up the hot dogs and put it in the macaroni and cheese. Like, I don't know who did that, but just making sure that people like that are being audited. You should not be able to be certified if that's all that you're serving these children inside your home, you know, and that right there continues to traumatize people. Like traumatize may be a heavy word, but that is exactly what it does. In a sense, I'm 30 years old and I still talk about that situation. That's trauma. And then, you know, in the prison system, that is so terrible. I have siblings in prison, and my brother, he's in prison now, and he works within the jail and he makes $20 per month. $20 a month. I don't think that that's okay. That's slavery, you know, that is just like forced labor. And he's going to school and he really appreciates those things, and those are all really good things. But when he gets home, what? Is there anything in place for him other than what we're doing here to make sure he has self-employment? Because he's not going to be able to go and get a job with that record. You know, he's not going to be able to, a lot of times he can't even get government assistance or financial aid or anything like that because those things hinder. So on the topic of rehabilitation, I think that some of those laws and policies need to be revised and revisited so that we make sure that if you want somebody to be able to go back into society, we have to open the door. We can't tell them to go back and still have all the doors shut.
You better come through with the preaching. Yes, you cannot. I love it. Yes, and you got the chat jumping right now too because it's a lot of claps and snaps. Because just thank you so much. You definitely said just a lot in regards to the importance of reunification and how rehabilitation needs to be just changed, like the total adaptation, the mind frame, the trauma that goes into it, which I love that you mentioned, because we're going to segue into a conversation about trauma. I think that, that those are all important. And so we have two more questions, and then I want to get to a few of the questions that we saw in the chat. And one of them I'm actually going to tie into my to my next question. I mean, to my last question, because I honestly feel like that is a representation of what I'm asking too as well. And so, Deshaun, most of our experiences are rooted in trauma, as we have kind of been talking about. The importance of mental health. Working with people who work with victims, and them being trauma informed. My question to you and Tori is, what was it like to heal? What was the biggest contribution to your resilience? And how did it impact the way that you connected with your peers and the way that you connected with folks?
Everyone's healing process is different. And the only way you know what your healing process is by taking time to spend with yourself. And that is a part of the reason why I can't say going to a prison was a bad thing, because I used my time to really get in touch with myself and my mind and to address the things that were plaguing me. And life is life and life be lifing. So there's always going to be more things to heal from and go through and push through. But firstly, being able to know what it is that you need in order for you to heal. For me, I use music. I still use music to this day. It's therapeutic. I use it to talk about whatever I'm going through. I also like to read. I like to meditate. And even at one point, I need to get back to it, but working out. At one point, working out was like my really go-to. And these were things that were just like outlets. Most of all, therapy played a role, but the people and the things that I use for therapy, they were more so non-traditional, because I avoided therapy when it was presented to me. That's why I said at one point, like, you're going to have to buckle down and get to it. Like, it's kind of like, it's kind of like your debt to yourself. You owe it to yourself. Um, and I'm fortunate enough to have really sound-minded individuals around me that I trust, people that I call family and friends, despite blood, that can tell me when I'm steering in the wrong direction, or if I need to do X, Y, and Z, and these people along my journey have played the role of a therapist to help me heal and get through what I was going through. Because at the end of the day, um, it's going through things. It's just not staying in them. And sometimes we gotta use other people and individuals around us to help us get through whatever we're going through. But like I said, everybody's different. Just take time for yourself. Like if you want to talk about healing, like take time for yourself. Like there isn't just one way to heal, because we all have different traumas, and some of them start much earlier than others. And just addressing those childhood traumas and taking time with yourself to figure out what it is for you to heal. Like, you know, I guess that's it.
Yes, thank you, Deshaun. I think that addressing your trauma and figuring out ways to heal is something that's very important. And that's why I just appreciate like safe spaces like this one. Because we actually get to talk about our raw, authentic selves, and in hopes of helping inspire someone that is watching this call, that this recording may be shared amongst folks. Somebody might have lived experience, and I think that what you said really, really is important, because it's going to ultimately help with the flourishment of the foster youth. And so thank you so much. Tori, I want to ask you the same question, and then we're going to go, we're going to do one more audience question, then we're going to get ready to close out, because I don't want to keep you guys for too long, even though I know that you guys want to stay, hopefully. That this event has just been really good and informational to you. I feel like that this conversation could definitely be a part 2 of this conversation. And is a great yes. Tori definitely is one of the winners, and Deshaun is the first place winner
He's
for our
first
poetry
place.
contest as well. First place for our poetry contest. His story is a powerful piece of juvenile justice. Tori wrote a powerful piece, and all of this was unanimously selected. And so you guys look forward to seeing these stories. If you subscribe to FFT, Fostering Families Today magazine, then you got it early. But we will be publishing the winners of the contest next month. And so just thank you guys so much, and shout out to whomever mentioned that, to Elizabeth for mentioning that in the chat. I think that was such a great highlight. And so Tori, in our experiences being rooted in trauma, what was a contribution to your resilience? What was healing like for you? What did that look like? And like Deshaun, could you also offer some advice to a foster youth out there in the world that might actually be going through the same thing and need to figure out a method or a solution, better practice to heal?
Yeah, absolutely. Trust your journey. It's all a journey, and it's not over. You're not going to stay stuck where you're at. You're going to go through some things, and you're going through the fire right now, I'm sure. And trust and believe you're going to go through it again in some form or fashion. So you have to be patient with your journey and understand that it's all a process. I wasn't able to recognize that though, until I got a little older. And I went through some more things that was like, oh, I guess that wasn't too bad, because this right here felt like this is, the wire. But I think that when I was in care, what helped me through care was mentorship, without a doubt, and not peer mentorship, adult mentorship, because my peers cared too much, a little bit about my feelings. They didn't quite tell me what I needed to know, but what I wanted to, but the adults around me that really cared and stuck through gave me the tools that I needed, that I still hold on to this day, and that I teach to my child. There's a disconnect right now with generations that children just are not being equipped with like those foundational like characteristics and good morals and values. And I thank God for the older people in my life who gave me them gems, because those are things that I may have strayed away from, but I always came back to. And so, yeah, so the adults around me like really gave me that for sure, in hindsight. And then I think my connection with God really is just like finding myself. I was able to truly like heal and understand that everything happens for a reason. We all in a position that we're in because of a better purpose, you know. And so once we get that realization, we're able to just like check it up with our chin up and get through whatever the obstacle may be. And so standing here today, sitting here right now, that's the only thing that got me through then, and that's the only thing that gets me through now.
I want to thank both of you guys. Both of you guys are so strong, just resilient. Tori and Deshaun, you guys know that I speak highly of you. Kitty, who was on the call with us earlier, just all three of you guys are just really heavy hitters, just making a mark. And like you said, everything happens for a reason. Like, I really remember those days. I used to be like, God, take me out this world. Like, why am I going through this? Like, this is crazy. But and I don't wish the system on nobody, right? Like, because it could be good for some folks, but ultimately the people I spoke with, it's been bad for them, and it was bad for me. And I don't, but I feel like that it made me very strong, and it helped me be able to be here today and be able to create these different opportunities. Somebody asked in the chat, would having peer mentors that have gone through similar situations be something that would have helped? And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I honestly feel like the YVR program would not be where it's at today if I would not, if someone, not me, but if anyone that was in this role, like, I don't imagine anybody being in this role but me, and that's just me just being like having zero modesty, because I really love my job and I rock out well. But I think that having the similar experiences as my program participants, where I call my program besties, definitely has changed the game, because they know like I'm coming from a raw, authentic place, because I have also experienced those things. And then I just am not like, and you guys can attest to, how you guys have worked with me in the past, but I feel like that I'm just not like a regular, like, my program managing is very unorthodox. I'm like at the graduations, I'm going to baby showers, I'm sending gifts. Like, it's not like the same as like, me waking up and it's like, oh, I go to work from 9 to 5 and then that's it. Like, I'm available at 2 a.m. time from some of my program participants to reach out to me because they're going through stuff. And I think that makes a big difference. It established a different connection. Being able to like, just go out of my way and just help advocate and create opportunities for them to be able to be compensated for their talking about their, compensated for their time and talking about their experiences. I love that question in the chat. And so, I wanted to just really thank you guys and ask you guys too, the same thing, would having peer mentors that share similar experiences of you guys, would that have made a better difference?
Yeah, I had people, in care with me who were my peers, and they were definitely going through their own line of fire for sure. I don't think that the place that I was in, I really wanted to hear from anybody about how to get through it. It was like a sense of like I needed a parent at that time when I was going through it. And so like I really needed that adult mentor in my situation. Maybe I'm not understanding what peer mentor is. Now, as I'm an adult, I would love to give back to younger. That's what I do. I do that all day long. I give back to younger kids, young ladies, and kind of go through what I've been through and how they can not make the same mistakes or how they can get through whatever they're going through. But I just recall when I was younger, that's not what I was looking for. My friends was telling me to do this, this, and that. I needed somebody that was like a mom, that was sheltering me, holding me close, and telling me, baby, this is what you want, but this is what you need. So.
Right. Yes, that's not what you want, but this is what you need.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that extra hug, like I know you want me to let you go, but I ain't about to let you
Mhm.
go like everybody
Right.
else. I think that reassurance is always something that's really good. And it might take 3 months, like some of us is open books. Like now, I'm not talking about my experience, and it just kind of fluent, like rolls off my tongue smoothly. But back in the day, you couldn't get me to talk about my foster care experience, and so thank you so much for being a part of this, Satori. Thank you so much, Deshaun. Shout out to Keedy who joined us today, and a special shout out to our audience and everybody in attendance today. We really thank you so much for just being here, staying live in the chat, asking questions to our panelists. And so we're going to pull up the screen right now because I definitely want to share some opportunities that we have coming up for the YVR program. And as I said, if you are interested in staying informed of all of the great things that we're doing here, please join our newsletter. We will drop it in the chat. And so, because I really wanted, I know that we were going to get into some deep conversation, and it was going to be a hard topic to discuss. I want to make sure that we are always constantly, having conversation in regards to ways to cope with or deal with trauma after like discussing events like this. Because sometimes some of these conversations, like Deshaun said, me reminding him, made him realize that he has suppressed some of his memories. And so these are 4 things that I want to share with you guys in regards to, as you walk away from this conversation, if it brought up some old emotions for you, if it, re-traumatized you or in any way, these are some of the things that you could take away from this conversation that can help you not only cope with your experiences after you come from these events, but just cope with your experiences in general. One of the ones that I really want to point out, and we're going to share this a PDF of this PowerPoint, so you will have this in your follow-up email, is that it's imperative to process our experience with people we trust, who can listen non-judgmentally. This allows for more genuine conversations and finding further solutions to cope and help create a strong support system. And so I really want to share that one of the 4 with you all because I think that is very important. Even in atmospheres in spaces like this where I am trying to amplify the voices of foster youth. I think that is also just really important that we always bring it back to home, and you guys know that that this is supposed to be an outlet that is supposed to be used as a safe space to help foster youth talk about their experiences. And we do not intend in any way to, re-traumatize you or, speak ill, of all sorts of things. And so just thank you all again for being here. I definitely have some opportunities that I want to share. So we're going to drop a link in the chat with our post evaluation. And please fill this out as the survey that you guys got earlier. This is just a way for me to know what I could be doing better as a program manager, how I could be better facilitating these conversations. I'm actually getting ready to step down as a facilitator because I want to welcome and offer some job enrichment skills to other foster youth that might be interested in being a moderator and me kind of being just like the coordinator while they host. And so that's something that we're going to be doing differently for the 2024 year. But this evaluation really helps me just kind of understand what I could be doing differently. If there's topics that you want to see us discuss, please put that in there. There's a space for you to share. If there's a webinar that you saw that you would be interested, I know we're doing one for social workers. We have one on Black and Brown male experiences, foster youth experiences. We're doing one on domestic violence and foster youth and the cycle of trauma. And so we have some really, really great topics that are coming up about cultivating positive relationships with social workers. Our next webinar is going to be dedicated to supporting reunification and building family bonds, which is something that you guys heard a lot about today. And so we're asking you to join in on the conversation about community as we speak to panelists who live experiences, their bio and foster parents to discuss how they all work together. Because it's just really, really important that everybody is kind of operating with the same goal, which is to make the system kind of better for other people, and just find authentic ways for foster youth to really just flourish. I missed this notice for the presentation. Will it be available at another date? Yes, we're going to be providing a recording to you guys. Ooh, I'm sorry, I didn't mess this up. We're going to be providing a recording to you guys in the link. to register for this event and your follow-up email as well. And so please join us. Give me just 1 second because I definitely just saw something about the survey being closed. It shouldn't be true, but I'm just make sure. I'll double check the survey link right now just to make sure. But if you guys don't know, we are hosting our second annual back to school drive. This is dedicated to high school and college bound foster youth. We are currently accepting applications as a wish list for those who are in college, going to college, that need an essential item. I mean, you guys, when I'm talking about essential items, I'm taking it to the next level. We're giving out mini fridges, we have computers, we have blankets, towels. I'm working to try to connect with the organization that would be interested in sponsoring our event with some feminine hygiene products so we can pack some of the backpacks with those, because that was one of the challenges that I faced when I was transitioning into college, not having anything but a trash bag of clothes, a few pictures, and, not even like school supplies. And so I created this event because we want to, often these events is catered to younger youth. And we really wanted to have an event where we really show and highlight foster youth. And so everybody that's on this call, if you would be interested in donating $5 worth of pencils, $5 worth of packs of paper, trust me, your donation will not go without notice. And it definitely would help us fulfill some of these wishes for some of these foster youth that had applied. And so I'm going to drop the link for you guys as well in the chat so that you guys can take a look at it. And if you have any information you want to donate, our in-person event is going to be July 29th at the Asana Academy in Leimert Park area on Crenshaw and Jefferson. We are going to be packing the backpacks the day before, and we are actually seeking some volunteers who can come out and kind of help us with the event too as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, please check out our Back to School Drive webpage to learn more about everything, that we have coming up in relation to that. And if you're interested in applying to donate and applying to receive a gift, we'll also drop the wish list in the chat too as well. I know that there was something in the chat in regards to the op-ed submission, which I actually want to talk about as well. And so in connection to this foster care to prison pipeline discussion that we had, there were foster youth on the call that we would like to welcome and invite to also talk about their experiences with the prison to pipeline and being from foster care pipeline, from foster care to prison, and their experiences with dealing with the juvenile justice system, youth detention, incarceration, etc. This opportunity will afford you the opportunity to have your article published on the imprint, as well as be compensated $250. We're going to be accepting articles up until May 20th, and then we're going to do foster care to prison pipeline, amplifying the voices of foster youth who have the juvenile justice experience, and just highlighting some of the challenges that they have experienced, some better solutions that everyone can, come to, and how everyone can come together to better support foster youth. And so if this is something that you're interested in, I just fixed the form so that you now can be able to submit and get information about it. If you have any questions in regards to the submission, please feel free to reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat and my phone number, and I would love to connect with anybody and everybody that is interested in supporting and wanting to learn more information. And so shout out to I seen Mary, I think Francine, I seen some folks in the chat and that dropped our donation stuff. And so just wanted to let you know that if you are interested in supporting Youth Voices Rising, you can do so by clicking this link. We're going to drop the link in the chat for you. Actually, we just did right now, and it has everything that you need to know in terms of the back to school drive. The drive is July 29th. We're going to be accepting gifts up until donations, the donated items, donated gifts up until July 14th, 15th, maybe a week, I believe 10 days before the actual drive, so we can make sure we actually receive the items and be able to give it to the youth. I'm actually trying to partner with FedEx or shipping companies so that I can be able to take this back to school drive national, and be able to provide wishes to foster youth all across the world. And so with your support and your help, and your donation, it not only helps with our back to school drive and initiative, but it helps us be able to continue to do things like this, webinars and our journalism opportunities where we compensate foster youth for their time and sharing their experiences. And so thank you so much. We're dropping the individual links in the chat, as you guys can see. And if you are interested in being a part of the event or contributing to the event, we definitely will appreciate it. So these are just some national resources that we wanted to share with you, some like-minded organizations that we wanted to shout out that do great justice of serving foster youth. And one of the ones that I didn't mention on here is the Right Way Foundation, Franco Vera. But we want to shout out and share some of these resources with you guys, just in case you haven't heard about these youth serving programs. And we would be interested in connecting and learning more about them. And you also find this in your follow-up email. And so with that being said, I want to say thank you all to everybody that showed up today. I am going to drop my information in the chat so that you guys can have it. We host workshops with programs to amplify the voices of foster youth. I have the Amplify the Voices of Foster Youth. We are always constantly seeking webinar panelists, constantly seeking people who are interested in doing articles. And so if that is something that's of interest to you, if you have a foster youth or you know a current or former foster youth that would be interested in connecting with me to just get a different outlook and a different outlet, I would love to connect with you in the future. And so I'm going to put my information in the chat. All of this stuff will be in the follow-up email. I believe, are all of these websites available in our email? Yes, all of this stuff will be in your follow-up email. When you get the back to school drive link, you could just click the link and it'll literally take you to the site with every link for the wish list, to have access to the wish list, to have access to our frequently asked questions, how you can be a sponsor, how you can be a vendor, how you can donate to the back to school drive with a monetary donation, how you can make an in-kind donation and supplies, and how you can sign up to volunteer. And so we will connect with you. Todd, I will send you Deshawn's email so that you can connect with them. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as we enjoyed hosting it and having it. You guys, for May 9th, we are having our National Foster Care Month webinar that is going to be dedicated to the importance of establishing bonds, strong connections between families. And we have some really great panelists that are going to be a part of that discussion too. And so with that being said, God bless everybody. I hope that you have an amazing, amazing weekend and a happy Thursday. Shout out to Keedy, shout out to Atori, shout out to Deshawn for being here today, for being vulnerable and sharing y'all experiences. And you guys are also open to writing for the submitting an op-ed, and we can talk more about it. I'll send it in y'all follow-up email. And so thank you again, you guys. Have a great day. Look out for the follow-up email. And if you have any questions or want to make a connection, I would love to. And so talk to you all soon. See you next time. And have a great day.